Okay. You're very welcome to the first webinar of our 2022 series, Discover Your Future in DCU. We have a fantastic episode lined up for today. So if you are a student or a parent or anyone else who's interested in the DCU School of Law and Government, you will certainly learn an awful lot about the school today. If you are a returning viewer from last year, you're very welcome back. If you're brand new, you're also welcome. You can see that there is a Q&A function on the screen. You should be able to access that. If you have any questions at all throughout the webinar today, please feel free to pop them into the Q&A and we'll make sure to address them at the end. So as I said, we're covering the School of Law and Government today. This school is described in DCU as a community of students and staff dedicated to studying the puzzles, problems and opportunities of the contemporary world. And what's particularly great about this faculty or this school is that they won the Law School of the Year award at the Irish Law Awards in 2021, which I'm sure we'll hear about from our speakers. And our speakers are the people who know most about these courses in DCU. So I'm delighted to welcome two academics and two current students to talk about their experience in DCU. So I'm going to try and multitask here as I welcome Dr Aisling de Paor, who is the Programme Chair of the Bachelor of Civil Law course in DCU. We have Dr Eoin O'Malley, who is the Programme Chair of Economics, Politics and Law at DCU. We have Harrison Moloney, who is a current student of the Bachelor of Civil Law in DCU, so I will promote Harrison. And then we also have Alice Jack, who is studying the Bachelor of Arts Joint Honours with Law and French in DCU. So let's see if I manage to do this. Okay. You should be able to unmute and appear on screen if I've done everything correctly. This is the dreaded moment for me. Did it work? Let's see.
I think I've unmuted, but it says we can't, you've stopped our videos.
I didn't mean to do that. Okay, let me see how I can allow you to be seen, because that's what we want. Oh,
well, maybe not.
Let's see if I can make you a co-host. You should be able to do everything then. Yeah, telling you, when I get out of practice, when I stop doing these webinars, things start going wrong. Hi, Ashley, you're very welcome.
Hi, Sinead. Thank you. Great to be here. Hi, Eoin.
Hi, Eoin.
How are you?
It wouldn't be a webinar without a bit of drama, so that's perfect. Now I'm just going to let Harrison in and we should be fully complete. How's everyone keeping?
We're great. Great, thanks. Delighted to be
Hey,
here.
everyone.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for your time. I know you're all extremely busy in the School of Law and Government, but you can see we have a lot of attendees in already. I'm sure a few more will come in as time goes on. And we also are recording this session as well. I know some students are in the middle of their mock exams, so fair play if you've come along amidst all the stress of that. We'll make sure that your time is worthwhile. So we can really go in any order here in terms of asking about the School of Law and Government, but we might start with our lecturers who know the material inside out and might be able to give some advice to incoming students. So we might start with Aisling. Aisling, can you tell us a little bit about the course that you're currently chairing at the minute?
Yeah, thanks, Sinead, and thanks for also pointing out that we were awarded Law School of the Year for 2021. We were delighted and very proud of that. So, as you said, I'm the chairperson for the BCL degree. The focus on our BCL degree is it's Law and Society. So it's a traditional law degree, a BCL degree, and it also focuses on how law impacts in society around us and how society impacts upon law. So students will learn about the legal system, legal processes, the key foundations of law and the legal processes, and they'll also learn how to critique these particular processes and look at law reform questions. Again, as I said, looking at that societal focus and how society around us will impact upon issues such as the Constitution and Irish constitutional law, criminal law, tort law, the law of contract. So it's a really interesting and and vibrant degree. One of the unique aspects of the degree from our perspective is it focuses also on experiential learning. So that is, for example, giving students the experience of law in action, giving students an insight into the practical legal world and what actually happens for solicitors and barristers when they go out into the real world, how legal cases go through the courts, how they operate in practice. And we feel that that is, you know, I think a fun way to get students learning about law and seeing how everything happens in practice. So an example of that is we have a mandatory moot court module, and that really focuses on experiential learning, developing practical legal skills, developing confidence, developing speaking skills. So students basically are given a fake case, a mock case, and they argue, they represent either the plaintiff side or the defendant side, and they present their case to the court. And we're lucky in DCU that we have a moot courtroom. I wish we had an image here to present to you, but it's a fake courtroom, and students get the opportunity to argue in this courtroom, to give them an insight into what it's like in a courtroom, and what it's like to argue a case in front of judges. So the lecturers would act as judges and would adjudicate on these particular cases. So that's an example of, I suppose, experiential learning, and that is evident throughout our degree. There's very much a focus on extracurricular activities and other skills such as debating, negotiation, other types of advocacy types of activities that give students an opportunity to get out of the lecture hall, to kind of move away from the books, and again to look at action, to look at experience, and to look at how to put that into practice. So in terms of the structure of the degree, that's just a flavour of what we would see as the distinctive aspects of the degree. But the degree is either 3 or 4 years, depending on whether students select to do a year on Erasmus, which is where you go and study in another university abroad for an academic year. And students also have the opportunity to do an optional internship year, which is where they effectively go out on placement in the workplace. Again, a very good example of experiential learning, and this focus that we have in DCU and in our school on employability. So it makes you employable, and we have opportunities for students to do placement in a variety of different legal settings. So for example, in many different law firms, large corporate law firms, medium-sized firms, smaller types of criminal or human rights firms, in-house legal environments such as tech companies, pharma companies that might have legal environments and in-house legal departments. We also have various public sector opportunities, the Department of Justice, Dublin City Council, lots and lots of different places where students can really gain a fantastic insight into, again, the real world, what it's like to work in law in a variety of different settings. And it really does, as I said, enhance employability. It gives students an opportunity to develop really practical soft skills that they will use in any workplace, whatever they go on and do, whether it's working as a solicitor, a barrister, if they would like to go on and work in another area, business, journalism, any public service, public sector environments. You develop really good practical skills that are very transferable. So that's, I suppose, a flavour of the structures and the distinct aspects of the BCL degree. And I'm happy to talk a little bit more in detail about various different modules that you would take, various optional and mandatory modules, but I might move on to perhaps another panelist who might want to speak from their perspective.
Yeah, Aisling, that's a fantastic overview, and what a jam-packed schedule those students have between the practical elements and having maybe an internship or studying abroad and optional modules. It really is a fantastic degree to study. I'm going to ask this question before we move on, because I know it will come up, because we certainly get it lots when we're out on the road in student recruitment. If someone wants to go on to become a barrister or a solicitor, this is a great course to do.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
it is. And this BCL degree really prepares you to become either a solicitor or a barrister. I'll start with the barrister route first of all. So the degree is accredited with the King's Inns. So that means that it's recognised by the King's Inns, which is the professional body that governs barristers in Ireland. It's accredited and recognised by that professional body. So it prepares students for the various entrance exams that they need to sit in order to progress into King's Inns, and it prepares them for the subjects that they would then study in the King's Inns. So various examples include constitutional law, property law, equity, administrative law, jurisprudence. So students are very, very well set up to then progress to become a barrister. In addition to that, as I mentioned, we really do focus on advocacy and practical legal skills, for example, through our moot court module. And that is basically exactly what a barrister is going to do. So we could not possibly be more prepared. In relation to training to become a solicitor, so the degree, if you want to become a solicitor in Ireland, what you need to do is, following your degree, you need to sit 8 FE1 entrance exams, then secure a traineeship with a law firm, and then complete your training at Blackwell Place. And our BCL degree very much prepares students for the 8 FE1 subjects that you need to sit. I won't go through them all, but examples of them include constitutional law, property law, equity, EU law, contract, criminal, etc. It also then very much prepares students to become solicitors, and it prepares them, it gives insights into what the work of a solicitor, the practical skills that are focused on if one wants to become a solicitor. And the majority of our graduates, to be honest, that is the route that they choose. They do decide to go on to become solicitors. Another aspect of that is we've got very strong connections with industry and with the legal profession itself. We constantly build links with various different law firms and the judiciary as well, and various barristers and those in the profession, to try to provide networking opportunities for our students and provide opportunities for them to do internships. And we do a lot of that type of work to facilitate internship opportunities, in addition to our intra-placement as well. So for those who are thinking about becoming either a solicitor or barrister, the degree very much sets students up for both of those careers.
Thank you, Aisling, and all those practical elements again are brilliant, and DCU's relationship with industry across any course, I think, is certainly one of our strongest points, and something that is really valued in DCU is making sure that not only you have a great time as a student and learn what you need to learn, but that you also have connections for when you leave, because it's really important. Aisling, thank you so much. If anyone has a question, you want to pop it in as we move on to the next person, we can revert back at the end to any questions. So Eoin, you are currently Programme Chair of Economics, Politics and Law in DCU, and I'm sure there are a number of students on the call today who are hoping to study that in DCU in September. What do they have to look forward to?
So yeah, if you aren't sure that you want to become a barrister or a solicitor, but you think law might be interesting, Economics, Politics and Law is probably a good degree to choose. It's also a good degree because it takes 3 intrinsically interesting subjects and allows you to study them both at the same time. Because you're looking at 3 subjects, it's quite a difficult degree. You end up having to become fluent in economics, fluent in politics, and fluent in law. And very often the 3 subjects, people who specialize in them, lawyers think differently to economists, for instance. And so you get to see problems from these 3 different viewpoints, which is very useful. And it's very helpful when you think about any sorts of social problems that a country faces. And so say, for instance, in Ireland, we think housing is kind of currently a big social problem. If you want to try and solve problems like that, you're going to have to know something about law, because very often the solutions will be written through law, or there will be constitutional issues, there will be rights-based issues. You will also obviously need to know something about economics, because laws of supply and demand are going to be important. Things like financing, home building is important. And you'll obviously also need to know about politics, because anything that actually happens through politics. And so if you miss the political aspect of it, you're going to not be able to actually solve it. So what a bit like BCL, except slightly differently, is we are also trying to produce graduates who have skills-based learning, who try to deal with common challenges that society faces, such as these. And we think the intersection of economics, politics, and law is really important. With the course, we try as much as we can, and it's been difficult in the last 2 years to do this because of COVID restrictions, but we try to do things like group projects and get people to work on problems, policy problems very often, to get them to work in groups so that they're developing those sorts of soft skills, working with other people, working in teams, to do group presentations or their own presentations, again, for the skills of verbal communications and visual communications, things like that. And basically to try and do it in kind of, to do challenge-based learning. So for instance, in the final year, I teach a public policy course where they're all broken into groups for the whole of the semester. They work in groups, they physically sit at desks with each other, and they work not on a kind of a general curriculum, but instead they work on their own problem, and they're constantly talking to each other in class on that problem, and we go from kind of group to group and to see how they're trying to solve the problem as I introduce different skills for them. So that's the sort of way in which we hope people can learn. In years 1 and 2 of the degree, they get an equal amount of economics, politics, and law. And interspersed with that are, they get modules that introduce legal skills, economics, statistics, various sorts of data analysis skills as well. In the 3rd year, students can either go in and do final year, or they can go on Erasmus to, I think there are about 9 or 10 different universities which we have arrangements with in Europe and in the Americas. They can also do intra placements, and so that has been another recent addition, where they can do intra placements with businesses, with law firms as well, and maybe with NGOs possibly as well. This is a kind of a fairly new addition to the program, and so it's expanding. There were a relatively small number of places last year, but it's expanding this year, and we hope that it continues to expand. And then those students who went off on that, or who just did their 1st and 2nd year, then come back into the final year of EPL, where you can then specialize if you want, or if you prefer to do all 3 subjects equally, you can do that. If you think, I know now that I want to become a solicitor, you can do all those subjects that will help you prepare for the FE1s as a BCL would do. The degree isn't a recognized law degree, so it doesn't give you access to King's Inns. You can, if you've decided economics and finance is what you want to do, you can specialize in that, and then it's a much more flexible degree then in the final year. And again, like the BCL, we hope that it provides a practical degree that gives people the sorts of skills that will enable them to get jobs, but also the sorts of skills that good citizens should have if they want to kind of live in a society.
Yeah, thank you, Eoin. I might ask a question about what sort of jobs that graduates go into, because our prospective students are always hit with, and what job can you get from that course? So can you give us an example of a few different careers, or maybe even further study that your students have gone on to do?
Yeah, so very often, many of the students who decide to specialize in law will try to become solicitors, and so many of the graduates are solicitors, are working in firms as lawyers. You will also see that many will choose to specialize, say, in economics. They might do a master's in economics. They may go into finance. You have lots will go straight into graduate training programs in kind of management consultancy and accountancy and things like that. So a lot of the graduates then work in those areas. You have graduates who work in the diplomatic corps, for instance, recently had one graduate who I think is a deputy ambassador, and actually in the other degree in the School of Law and Government, the degree of International Relations, which there's no representative from, we have, I think, people who are ambassadors who are graduates from IOR, and also into public policy, becoming civil servants and public servants, working in government. And indeed, we have a former graduate, in fact, a graduate from the first year is a cabinet minister, Helen McEntee.
Oh, fantastic. So quite a lot of options there, and students can, I suppose, carve their own path as they go through the degree and figure out what they like and what they dislike, which is great. And keep the questions coming in. We'll be sure to address these at the end, but we'll move on now to maybe Alice, who is one of our student ambassadors, who is doing a degree which is half law and half French. So Alice, how has that been, the law part specifically for today?
I really enjoyed it because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. We spoke about this actually before. I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I was filling out the dreaded CAO form. I know it's horrible. But I found the joint honours law course at DCU to be something that I found really interesting, and a lot of other people might as well, because it's a 50-50 split between law and something else. Because I'm a very indecisive person. I couldn't figure out which one I liked more. So getting a degree like a joint honours law really means you can study law, and it's heavy enough, I won't lie, but you still have another subject then there that you can jump between, and the opportunities are endless, completely endless.
And Alice, you had mentioned before, because we did record a podcast about this, that you really enjoyed the moot court parts in particular. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I'm in second year at the moment. So last semester I had my moot and my moot court advocacy module, and we spoke about this a lot, but it's one of my favorite things I've ever done. I think it's the best thing ever. People see me as someone who's like, oh, she can be confident if she wants to be. I was so nervous walking into that module. It was terrifying. You walk in, you're like, I'm gonna have to actually try and, represent somebody and try and win this and like make my points and all this sort of stuff. And I was like, no, I'm all right. I don't want to do it anymore. I'd rather not.
I'd say you felt like you were on trial, Alice, going into that.
Yeah, I did. You walk in, you sit down, and you're like, okay, this is terrifying. Especially when you walk into the mock courtroom for the first time. That's when you're like, okay, this is kind of real. But over what I learned in that class and the amazing support of our tutors as well, amazing tutors for that class as well, and working in a team with my partner as well was really helpful. I feel like I can do anything now, and it really does give you a lot of confidence while also teaching you practical application of the skills that you've already learned, which I really enjoy, because I find I learn so much more when I get to practically apply what I've been told already. So it was not only really fun and a big challenge, it was incredibly beneficial to my learning, I feel personally. I know, Harrison, you did moot as well. I think you can probably say the same, that it was really, really great. But it's a great way for you to gain some sort of experience, practically apply what you know, and actually learn more in the process. So it's just, I could talk about it all day, but I won't.
Yeah, and it's a lovely, safe environment, isn't it, to learn in? And I think that's what's really about DCU is the lecturers aren't scary. It's not an approachable person, they're preparing you really well for the world of work. And Harrison, you have done the moot court as well, but how did you, Harrison, even decide on studying law at DCU? What made you choose DCU?
Of course, so it's a pleasure to meet all of you. My name is Harrison and I'm a final year BCL student. So when it came to the CAO, I knew that I wanted to do law, but it was a matter of where I wanted to study. And the reason why I was attracted to DCU was that community atmosphere. This was a university where not only I would have the opportunity to study that black letter law, which is your constitution or your contract, but I would have that opportunity to go in and really see what it's like to be a solicitor or barrister and gain those practical skills. So that's what really drove me to go to DCU. And one great thing is the academic support and staff that we have here. Since we're smaller in class size, this means that you can that you can build a really great relationship with your staff, tutors, mentors, even the alumni network. And this really allows you to get an insight into what law is like. Because Sinead, as you touched on there, hearing about this busy schedule with all the modules that we do, it can oftentimes feel overwhelming. And as someone who came into this area of study with no prior experience or no connections in law, when I attended these talks and when I looked at the websites, I was often concerned that perhaps this wouldn't be for me, or I wouldn't have the prior knowledge that I needed. But the great thing about all of the law degrees, especially the BCL degree here in DCU, is the structure. You come in and you're not expected to know any previous knowledge or anything about the course itself, and the modules and the way it's structured build you up and build up those skills so that you're then ready for these fantastic opportunities. So for example, in Foundations of Law and Legal Research, you learn the difference between a solicitor and barrister, and you learn different approaches to legal research, such as something so simple as how to read a case. I remember reading for the first time and spending hours and hours going over these 100-page judgments, but now that's something that would only take 20 minutes. And it's that knowledge that then allowed me to move on to the moot court module. And I'm telling you now, if there's even one reason to come to DCU, it's the moot court module. It was definitely the highlight of my time in DCU, as well as of my peers. I'll never forget Jimmy Brown, who I was against, who was a model who fell and suffered a serious laceration on his face. So the cases themselves are great, and it's so much fun. But none of us had any knowledge or idea of what it would be like to go up in a barrister. And that's something I really want to encourage everyone to know today, that you're not expected to know anything. You come into these things and you're there to learn. And that's exactly what the lectures will provide you with.
I feel left out. I want to do the moot court. Do you take any just like temp? Can I just sit in on a class? Honestly, it sounds, I have a video. I'll just be the judge. I have a video actually that I'll play before the end of a tour of our moot court room. So make sure to hang around anyone to the end. Harrison, just before we move on to the questions at the end, clubs and societies in DCU are a huge part of college life, and you've been able to somehow incorporate your studies into a hobby as well. Can you tell us a little bit about FLAC and what that means?
Of course. So unlike a lot of other degrees, the law degree has a connection with 3 different societies. So there's the Law Society, which I'm part of, ELSA, which explores European law and international opportunities, as well as FLAC, which is closest to my heart, and that is the Free Legal Advice Centre Society. So we provide legal clinics to the general public and student body. So if they have any issues, they can come to us, and alongside a panel of students and a qualified solicitor or barrister, they can receive advice or an opinion of what the next step they can do is. So this is really where you see that practical application of law. That FLAC is promoted, as well as the Law Society, within every module. The lecturers are so encouraging of it. They do anything that they can to help. And it's opportunities like this that allow the students to take what they learned in the classroom and apply it to real life situations. So I've had times where I've advised students who are suffering with tenant issues, and they need to know how they can properly read the contract that they signed. And the ability to be able to go to your contract lecture and see what the law is, and then understand that, and then be able to deliver that to someone else. It really feels like a superpower at times, and to be able to have that incredible opportunity to go and help other people with that. And that's something that I found fascinating. And even with that, as Dr Aisling de Paor was saying, we have so many great career opportunities. So I've been able to use my time with FLAC to establish a network with law firms where I eventually ended up being offered my traineeship with. And that's really a testament to the community atmosphere that we have here, and the opportunities that are available to students from DCU.
Thank you, Harrison. That's a great insight, that you can get involved in so many things outside of lecture hours as well. And if you want, you can actually line up with the course you're doing, which is fantastic. So we've a couple of questions come into the box. So what I might do is I can read them out, and whoever on the panel knows the answer, you can just feel free to jump in. And if anyone has any last minute questions, because we're just coming up to the half-an-hour mark, please do pop them in. So the first one there is, hi, with a degree in civil law, could you pursue a career in advocacy? And if you choose the path of advocacy, would you say there are many jobs within that area?
Okay, so I'll jump in with that one, and thank you for the question. As I said, we do focus on advocacy very much with our BCL degree. This has been a career of interest to some of our graduates, and I would say that there are opportunities, for example, in NGOs, for example, in Ireland and in Europe and further afield. So it would be in that context that our graduates would get into the area of advocacy. I wouldn't say that there are a huge amount of jobs in that particular area, and many students and graduates would get into that probably more so on a voluntary basis, and they might decide to do internships, for example, in NGOs. But there are some interesting opportunities in, for example, the field of human rights, again at Irish level and further afield in Europe, etc. But there are certain opportunities absolutely in that area of advocacy.
Thank you. And the next question is, what is the difference between BCL and LLB, which comes up quite a bit as well? Aisling, you might take that one too.
Yeah, so the BCL degree is generally an undergraduate degree that students would do at university level. An LLB degree is generally a postgraduate degree that, say, somebody who would like to do a full law degree after, say, they've done another type of undergraduate degree in any discipline, would then go on and do an LLB to complete their legal knowledge and their legal modules. For example, if they want to go on and do the King's Inns or Blackwall Place. In terms of, I think part of that question was, is there a difference in terms of modules? Well, both degrees will cover the foundational legal modules, including constitutional law, contract law, property, equity, EU law, etc. There's not much difference other than to say that the LLB is generally postgraduate level.
Perfect. Thank you, Aisling. Another one come in and said, hi, could you give a sense of the workload in law, and maybe even the ambassadors can jump in if they want. Is there a lot of outside studying required?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So in terms of the workload with the BCL degree, I would say that it probably doesn't have full-time hours in terms of lectures and tutorials. There aren't a huge amount of lecture hours per week. However, as part of the degree, there is a requirement that students engage in independent study. So our students and our ambassadors can probably speak more to this than I can, but there would be many hours required in the library, looking at big law books and reading through cases and reading through legislation and doing the additional reading that goes along with the different lectures. So it's, I would say, not full-time hours in terms of lecture load or tutorial load, but absolutely there's a fair amount of independent study and independent reading. And if you are doing law, reading and looking at cases and looking at big textbooks and pieces of legislation is a necessary part of it.
Thank you. And one final question that's come in, and then we'll show our tour of the moot courtroom. Do you learn all acts / legislation as part of the law degree?
Okay, very good question. So you would learn many acts and pieces of legislation. Law is constantly changing and constantly evolving. At many, any time there would be amendments to pieces of legislation. So it's constantly changing. You will learn the main pieces of legislation. For example, in the area of criminal law, you will learn about the different relevant pieces of legislation there. In the area of contract law, you will look at the various pieces of legislation there. Then depending on what module say that you choose, if you say decide to do modules such as family law or employment law, you will learn about those pieces of legislation. If you decide to do international human rights law, you learn about those. So it very much depends on the subjects that you choose, but you will certainly learn lots and lots of acts. You learn about lots of different pieces of legislation. And you learn as you're studying law that it's very much evolving, it's very much changing depending on the societal context, the economic, political climate at the time. But yes, you learn lots about law and pieces of legislation.
Thank you very much for answering those questions, Aisling. Sincere thank you to all of our panelists who took time out of their very busy schedules, as I mentioned. So thank you for your 30 minutes today to provide such fantastic information to our prospective students. That's Dr. Aisling de Paor, Dr. Eoin O'Malley, Alice Jack, and Harrison Moloney. So just before, you can log off if you'd like, but we do have a campus tour video of our moot courtroom that our panelists were raving about today. So feel free to enjoy this video as we finish up the webinar. Thanks for all our attendees. And if you have any questions, you can send them on to studenthelp@dcu.ie, and we'd be more than happy to get back to you. So enjoy the video.
The second floor of the Henry Grattan building is the moot courtroom. The room is used for mooting, where students present a legal submission on a specific area of the law to a panel of judges. The room was opened in 2018, and it's the first purpose-built moot courtroom of its kind in Ireland. The room is laid out like an actual courtroom, with a bench for the judge at the top of the room. The counsel for the defendant and counsel for the plaintiff sit facing the judge. In second year, law students take a moot court module for the entire year and present their submissions to a panel of judges in the moot courtroom. The room is open throughout the year for students to practice with their teams. We host a number of mooting competitions here throughout the year, including the Aoife King Memorial Moot for novice or first-time mooters and the Grand Moot, where the highest scoring teams from the moot court module compete for the grand prize. Mooting is a great way to build your confidence as a public speaker, and we are so lucky to be able to practice and compete in a room like this. It gives you a good idea of what presenting in a real courtroom feels like. The DCU Law Societies, LawSoc, European Law Students Association, and the Free Legal Advice Clinic use this room for their events throughout the year. This room brings us all together, and it's a great way to meet and connect with other law students.